Back on the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk KFYO. We go to the phones, and joining us this morning, someone who's very, very busy. Congressman Jodey Arrington joins us. Congressman, good morning. How are you today?
Well, I'm doing well, Chad. Good to be with you. Busy, but a labor of love because I get to represent West Texas. Unprecedented times, crazy times. We'll get through it, but we've got to take some unusual and extraordinary measures to deal with this very extraordinary situation, and that's kind of where we are.
So, okay, help us figure this out. Do y'all have to vote on this, or can it be a voice vote? How is this working on the stimulus package in the House?
Well, it will be a voice vote, and people can put, statements in for the record as to their support or opposition. I stood on the floor just 30 minutes ago and spoke about my feelings on behalf of West Texas and my reluctant support for this because I have serious concerns. But all in all, I think that the good outweighs the bad, and the bad is temporary, and we've got to get this help to our families and to our small businesses. So that's how this is working. It's not a roll call, so you won't have individuals casting their vote. But the way I do this is I take a position, and then I make my statement because I think that West Texans would expect us to voice our position, and I did.
So, what's the time frame here as far as the stimulus goes for small businesses, for the average person out there? What are we looking at?
Well, I think this is going to go directly to the president's desk. He'll sign it. I think by the end of next week, there'll be monies that will be lent, and that is important. Most of this, in terms of the help for distressed industry and the small businesses that need immediate cash flow to pay payroll, keep afloat, will be in the form of a loan that will be paid back. Now, there is that component. If you are a small business and use it for payroll, some of that can be converted to a grant, and I think that's good policy, by the way. So, and then you've got the beefing up of strengthening the safety net, where people, unfortunately, will lose their jobs. We've seen millions come on the unemployment rolls, and we need to make sure that we can catch them and spring them back to employment as the economy gets back up and running.
Visiting with Congressman Jodey Arrington here on the Chad Hasty Show. Congressman, Speaker Pelosi has already talked about a Phase 4 stimulus. Do you think that that it's too early to start talking about that, or do you think that, we're probably going to see a Phase 4 kick in at some point?
I think there will be a Phase 4. I think it will be more targeted. I think it'll be more limited. But let me say how shameful and the height of political opportunism that Pelosi had negotiated things like the Kennedy Center funding and funding for arts and humanities and public radio at a time of crisis. Yes. Now, I didn't harp on that on the floor, but I want my constituents and your listeners to know I think it's appalling to introduce such partisan and ideological policies that are totally irrelevant and unrelated to the disaster. And we staved off most of that, Chad. And again, it's temporary. This will sunset automatically. But there were some things in there that were certainly, not good and unfortunate.
One question that I have gotten from a few folks: will businesses have to repay loans, and will the average American have to repay the check or the direct deposit that they'll be receiving?
Direct assistance is in the form of basically cash. It's $1,200 for folks who make income up to $75,000. Then it phases out. If you're married, you get twice that. So it'd be up to $150,000, two $1,200 checks. I oppose the direct assistance. I want to be clear. Only for those who needed it, I would target that, but that ship has sailed. They will not have to pay that back. Some do need it. And then, of course, on the small businesses side, where you have 500 employees or less, you will be able to keep some portion or be forgiven for some portion of the loan. It's a very low interest rate, 4%, 100% federal guaranteed. It's going to be administered through the banking system so that we can be nimble and quick and not be bogged down with bureaucracy. But some of that will be paid back, and certainly all the big industry distressed bridge loans will be paid back from that Treasury program.
Congressman, before I let you go, and we're running low here on time, I want to ask you about something that it probably is not on your radar, but it's a huge debate point throughout this state, and I think throughout the country. Gun stores. You've seen gun stores, the different shutdowns across America. Do you consider gun stores essential, or are they non-essential? What recommendations would you give out there to anybody?
Well, I would say that in a time of crisis, people are anxious, and in times of unprecedented crisis, there's a great deal of uncertainty for people's safety. I think the Second Amendment is essential. I think to defend your family is essential. And so I think there are ways to allow for it and still have precautions in place. I defer to the local level government and states because I'm a state's sovereignty guy, but when it comes to the Second Amendment and defense of your family, I think you ought to be able to have access to firearms, and I stand strongly on that.
Thank you, Congressman. We wish you the best of luck out there. Stay healthy, by the way. Stay healthy up there, okay?
You got to
stay away from Rand Paul and some of the other folks, okay?
I try to stay away from as many members of Congress as possible.
I hear you. Congressman, thank you for your time and for the update.
You bet. God bless. Go West Texas.
That's Congressman Jodey Arrington this morning on the Chad Hasty Show.